we're going to be looking at an adaptation to the 12 steps, which is called the 12 efforts. I'd ask you, if you can, to explore these concepts and to see what's true for you. We try not to argue and simply to come with an attitude of discovery, that there is no right and wrong here. There's not, it's not a moral issue. These are just points to consider. And whenever we look at language, it's always powerful. It's always a powerful thing to look at language. Words are among the most powerful things that we possess in this life. And so to look at language is such an interesting and powerful experiment. So I'll tell you a story first, and then we'll get into this. For many, many years, after I got sober, people would come to me and say, if I was working with a newcomer, say, or I was in discussion with anybody about the steps, so many people have come to me over the years and said something like, I don't really get the steps. I don't understand them. The language, I really don't understand. These steps are not for me. They don't feel good to me. When I recite them, I read them on the wall at a 12-step meeting. It doesn't feel good. People would say, I tried to work the steps, but I couldn't get the God thing. That quote right there has kept people from getting sober. I couldn't get the God thing. Other people have come with religious trauma and religious prejudice from something that happened to them in their childhood, maybe the way their family approached religion, or authority figures maybe forced beliefs upon them, or something unpleasant happened in association with a church or a mosque or a synagogue or any holy place. But so many people come with preconceived notions, in many cases, negative preconceived notions about God. And so there you are trying to get sober, and you look up on a wall at like your first meeting, and there are the 12 steps, and you see the word God, 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 higher power, God, 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 God. And you think to yourself, oh no, I'm in a cult. This is a religious place. What have I gotten myself into? And there's so much misunderstanding around it that very often a person will just simply leave. And at my very, very first meeting ever, which took place in treatment, when I was into treatment, I got to treatment, and the very first late afternoon that I was there was a 12-step meeting. It was my first experience of treatment. It was my first experience of anything regarding recovery. And at the end of the meeting, everybody stood up and we held hands and we recited the Lord's Prayer, which I had never recited to that day. And I raised my hand after the meeting and I said, I just want to say that I just don't think this is for me. And I had arrived, 10, 15 minutes ago. And the entire room exploded in laughter. And when all that calmed down, this guy came up to me and said, you were honest. You said, you told the truth. This doesn't feel right for you. You were honest, and that's going to serve you well long term. Well, I got through that first experience, but the point remained. I didn't have an understanding of the words of the steps, never mind a prayer like the Lord's Prayer, the Serenity Prayer, etc., etc. So over the years, people have come to me and they said, I can't stand the God thing. I can't understand it. I don't like the fact that they refer to God as a he or a him or a his. None of that makes sense to me. Many people have also said things like the whole concept of powerlessness. I don't understand that. There's so much about these steps that I just don't understand. And so what happens is so many people decide, I'm just not going to do it. It's not my path. It doesn't resonate for me. And what I'm trying to get people to understand is in those 12 steps is a certain kind of genius, but you have to decipher it. You have to get inside of it. You have to make it work for you. And that means that somebody has to help you to understand it. And someone has to help you with language, because the problem here, the hurdle here initially is language. And when a person looks up at those steps on a wall at a meeting, they think to themselves whatever they think. But one of the things they're thinking is, how can I interpret that? Or how do I interpret that? And that person is going to interpret those steps based upon their education, their history, their family, the whole deal. And I sit in meetings sometimes and I look up at the wall and I'm looking around at some of the newcomers in the room and I'm like, man, what a load to have to try to decipher all this. I sure hope that these people, these newcomers, have somebody who can consciously, openly, and very kindly and wisely help them to better understand. Okay, so that's the preface for what we're doing here tonight, okay? So after all these years, a long time ago, I had a thought about could language within the 12 steps be limiting in helping people get sober? Could it be like off-putting to the extent where some people won't get sober because of the way they're worded? And I thought, yes, that's true based on the experience of many, many people I've spoken with. But then I thought, well, who would possibly have the balls to rewrite the 12 steps? My God, because there's so much genius and beauty in there and they've helped so many millions of people over the years. Who would possibly have the balls to do it? Well, it just kept bothering me over the years. Bothering me. Like there's important, we should look at language here and we should make certain shifts. So long story short, last summer, this was August of 2019, I woke up in the middle of the night, literally 2 a.m. And it was one of those things where you wake up and you're just awake. Like you're not tired, groggy, like you kind of feel almost jet lagged, like where you're not going to bed. You're not going back to sleep. And so I got up out of bed and Kia was there and I like sort of quietly, got out of bed and I went into the bathroom and there was no room in the bathroom. So I sat down on the bathroom floor and it got in my head that I should take a crack at some new language that would preserve the 12 steps, the spirit of the 12 steps, but that would create language that was potentially accessible for more people. It wasn't meant to improve upon or change the spirit of the 12 steps. It was only meant to make it more accessible for people who had the challenges that I've referenced. So there I am on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m., a place many of us have found ourselves under both terribly negative and in this case, a positive circumstance. And I write the 12 efforts and it comes effortlessly to me that evening. And so I wanted to go through them and take a look at these steps, these efforts, and the adaptation of them. Okay, the original first step in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, right, which was the original 12 steps. The original 12 steps, first step was we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. The first effort is we admitted we had been stuck in patterns of belief and behavior that no longer served us, and that we were cut off from the power of consciousness. I'll read it again. We admitted that we had been stuck in patterns of belief and behavior that no longer served us, and that we were cut off from the power of consciousness. Okay, compared to the original, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol or over addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. So here, we admit that we had been stuck in patterns of belief and behavior that no longer served us. and that we were cut off from the power of consciousness. The reason why I wrote that was because, for me, we're talking always about the expansion of consciousness. We're always talking about expansion of awareness, refinement of intellect, and expansion of consciousness. That because of the way we believe, because of the way we see the world, it creates in us belief systems. Because of our history, our memory, and our past, we have ingrained patterns and conditioning in the body. That if we were going to break out of that, we are talking about a transformation of being that I refer to as an expansion of consciousness. So the 12 efforts are really all about consciousness, as I believe the 12 steps are as well. Again, I'm not trying to change the 12 steps. I'm just trying to provide languaging that's accessible and even more empowering for certain groups of people that find the 12 steps difficult for them. So that was the first effort, is because we were cut off from the power of consciousness, consciousness being another word for God, another word for higher power, another word for the quantum field, the consciousness that underlies, literally is the fabric of the universe. That consciousness, that awareness through everything, through all of time, all of space, and beyond time and space. That consciousness, being cut off from that, we had problems. So that's what the first effort is telling us. Okay? So the second step, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Came to believe, so there's a process there. Like, we don't believe, but we're coming to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The second effort changes the language as follows. We came to believe that by reconnecting with consciousness, we could reestablish health, live in peace, and thrive on a never-ending path of discovery. And right there, in the second effort, is our community's declaration that we are on a path of discovery. Every one of us is on a path of discovery. And I've never met the person in our community, I never have met anyone in our community who said, you know what, Tommy, I'm absolutely not on a path of discovery. I'm not interested in discovery, and I'm not discovering anything. I've never met that person. All of us seem to be on the path of discovery. So that language right here in the second effort, very important. We introduced that concept. We came to believe that by reconnecting with consciousness. Now, how do we reconnect with consciousness? It's a process. But essentially what I'm saying is we're reconnecting with the consciousness within each one of us, which is connected to the consciousness everywhere. So there is a divine finite peace within us, which connects to the infinite divinity within all things. That infinite divinity is within each one of us, every one of us. And we reconnect with that. You could use language like, I'm reconnecting with my heart. I'm reconnecting with my soul, or my soul's purpose. And in making that reconnection, I believe that I can heal, live in peace, and thrive on a never-ending path of discovery. Are you with me so far? Does that make sense? Can you get behind that? Can you get behind that idea? Everybody so far? Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Third step, made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God, as we understood God. So, third effort changes the language as follows. We made a decision to focus our will and our life on connecting with and living from consciousness as it expresses itself through us. So what they're saying in the third step is, we made a decision, we're turning our will and our life over to God as we understand God. Okay. Nothing wrong with that if the languaging works for you and it invites you into the process. Third step, very confusing for people, many people. A very powerful step. One of the most powerful things I've ever done. Here in the third effort, shifting the language slightly. We're focusing our will, focusing our life on connecting with and living from this consciousness that expresses itself through our very being. So that takes an idea of an external deity and a God, a higher power, whatever your concept is for that. That takes the concept of that being external and it internalizes it within each one of us, that we are not separate from God, that we are a part of it, that we are participating in the thing called God. We are actual participants in the thing called God. That is, if we are willing. If we are willing. And here in this step, all we're saying is, let's focus on this connection with our heart. Let's focus on a connection with our soul or our soul's purpose. And if we do that, we'll get to live from that greater sense of consciousness as it is expressing through us. So it's really a part of us. We're recognizing that. And from that place, now we can get into the work, which is exactly what the fourth step tells us to do. And I did not change the fourth step at all. I maintained it exactly as it was in the 12 steps. So we made an honest and thorough personal inventory of ourselves. Honest and thorough. There may be a one word, actually slight change there. Fearless. That was it. Sorry, I did change one word. We made a fearless and thorough personal inventory of ourselves was the step. In the efforts, we made an honest and thorough personal inventory of ourselves. The reason I changed the word fearless to honest was because I felt it was impossible to dictate terms of fearlessness as you go through the fourth step. It can't be fearless, meaning without fear. And it doesn't matter if you have fear, you just simply do it anyway. So I just thought, you know what? I had a lot of fear going through the fourth step, and a lot of people have fear going through the fourth step. And so why does it matter if we have fear or not? We're going to go through it anyway. And so despite having the fear, we do it anyway. And so what we're going to do is we're going to shoot for rigorous honesty. So we made an honest and thorough personal inventory of ourselves. And I think that inventory, the fourth step inventory, the inventory of the fourth effort, is one of the most important things that people can do in this life. I cannot overstate it, how valuable a process it is. If you have never worked the fourth step, if you've never worked these steps, please work these steps, work these efforts, access the beauty and the power of these steps. And right here in the fourth step, what we're talking about is looking inside of your being for the aspects of your personality or your character that block you from consciousness. Whatever's blocking you from consciousness, clearly we want to be rid of that so that we can access greater consciousness and be more in the universal flow. Everybody can benefit from this process. There's nobody that's in the human condition that wouldn't benefit from going through this process. So it's not about God. It's not about a belief. It's not about anything except I should take a look at myself and my life and learn from my resentments and my mistakes and the ways that I might have been harmful in this world. I should learn from those things and I should move towards a process of reconciliation, which we'll come to in a moment. So that's the fourth effort. The fifth step, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. Changed this slightly here in the fifth effort. Admitted to the universe, so we replace the word God with the universe, to ourselves and to another human being, the exact nature of our unconscious behavior and the pain we had created as a result. I'll read it again. Admitted to the universe, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our unconscious behavior and the pain we had caused as a result. Again, the original. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. And I felt, getting into right and wrong, gets into that realm of morality and gets into the realm of shaming and gets into the realm of a person feeling really low in themselves for the things that have taken place. And I thought, maybe we could change that word wrongs into our unconscious behavior. Because ultimately, if we're hurting somebody or we're hurting ourselves, ultimately we can trace it back to unconsciousness. So we wanted to admit to the universe, to ourselves, and to another human being, the nature of this unconscious behavior. We'd fallen out of consciousness. We already admitted that in the first effort. And here, because we were in unconscious behavior, we had caused some pain. Maybe it was our pain, somebody else's pain, but we had caused pain as a result of being out of connection with consciousness. And so here we were going to admit it. Beautiful. So step number 6 here. The sixth step, let's see. We became willing to ask God to remove our defects of character. To remove our defects of character. That's the languaging there, defects of character. The sixth effort changes the language as follows. We became entirely ready to release these unconscious behaviors. We admitted we had been separated from consciousness. We came to believe that we could reconnect with consciousness and heal. We made a decision to focus our will and our life on that reconnection. Then we made a personal and thorough and honest inventory, and we admitted the nature of our unconscious behavior and the pain that we caused. Here, in the sixth effort, we're just becoming ready, entirely ready to release, to let go of these unconscious behaviors. Beautiful. Who wouldn't want to do it? Who wouldn't want to do it? Who would not want to let go of these unconscious behaviors? All of us want to do it. Naturally, we want to do it. And we recognize, God, we used to behave poorly. And the reason was not because we're evil people, but because we became separate from consciousness itself. We behaved unconsciously to varying degrees, and we created some pain. Okay, so now we're going to release. We're going to release those things. And who wouldn't want to do it? It's such a wonderful thing. Okay, then we move towards step 7, humbly asked God to remove these defects, right? To remove our shortcomings. The way I put it in the effort, the 7th effort, is humbly ask the universe to remove the things which blocked us from greater awareness and presence. So these things, these unconscious behaviors, were caused by this disconnection from consciousness. They were aspects of us that we needed to let go of. And we asked the universe, and we said, we're ready to completely release these things. And we put a prayer out. Please remove the things which block me from greater awareness and presence in this moment, bringing myself to full presence. And this is a wonderful basis for a prayer that any one of us could carry morning, noon, and night through our life. Help me. Help me to remove the things that get in the way between me and greater awareness, greater consciousness, greater presence. So I really, that resonates for me deeply. Step 8 was left the same, both in the steps and in the efforts. Step 8 and effort number 8, made a list of all those we had harmed and became ready to make amends to them all. Made a list of all those we had harmed, became ready to make amends to them all. Okay, so this is about the beginning of that reconciliation process, the beginning of the amends process, which we come to in the next step or the next effort, is we need to make a list of the people where our unconscious behavior caused some pain. So we make that list in effort number 8. Effort number 9, step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So here is this beautiful amends process. Without question, an entire hour could be spent, hours could be spent lecturing about this particular step or this particular effort. The 9th effort, along with the 4th effort, 4th step, one of the most important processes that I think exists for us. This is an opportunity for us to look a person in the eye and say, I did a wrong. I did an unconscious behavior. I see it. I recognize it as unconscious behavior. I'm conscious now. I see what it was. I recognize that it created pain, a disharmony, a disconnection, and I want to make it right. I want to bring it into the light of consciousness and build a bridge between us, if at all possible. That's what I want to do. So that's that incredible 9th step or 9th effort. Made direct amends to such people, except when to do so would injure them or others. Beautiful. Then we come to the 10th step. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So I just changed the language basically. Just continued to take personal inventory, and when we made mistakes, rather than when we were wrong, again, emphasizing our wrongness. And there's an intensity to that I wanted to lessen. So continue to take personal inventory, and when we made mistakes, we quickly corrected them. Now, again, I'm 29 years sober. I can't think of a year. I can't really think of a month. I'm sure I can't think of a week. And I probably can't even imagine a single day in 29 years of recovery where I didn't make a mistake. It seems to be part of the deal here. And here's the thing about making mistakes. That's our mechanism for learning. If we're on a path of discovery, we make a mistake, we learn from the mistake, we move forward, we try not to make the same mistake again. We make a new mistake. Or if we make the same mistake again, we try to get the lesson. And until we get that lesson, we can, probably count on making that same mistake until we finally get the lesson and can move forward. So of course we're going to make mistakes. And I guess one of the questions for us is, do we have the humility to accept that as just being a part of the human condition? There was a wonderful picture somebody snapped of me next to a piece of art. A woman had drawn this gorgeous piece of art, and the art said, it had words, it said, on to the next mistake. And so I just went next to it and I just sort of did this move like, this is me. I'm on to the next mistake. And how else would we have it be? It's how we learn. It's how we grow. It's what it is. It's part of the human condition. And so putting it this way, rather than saying we're wrong, when we made mistakes, we quickly corrected them. That felt better. 11th step, big one for us in the Recovery 2.0 community. The 11th step, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of His will and the power to carry that out. So the language changes here slightly. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with the universe, praying only for greater consciousness and the energy to fulfill our purpose today. And the reason I wrote it that way was what came to me was, we're on a one day at a time program. Let's emphasize that our prayer and meditation is about accessing greater consciousness and energy. In the original Big Book, it says, lack of power. This we thought was our dilemma. So if lack of power is the problem, then accessing more power is the solution. Hence the terminology of higher power, which is not a problem, and certainly not a problem for me. But for some, it is. Again, we come to this language of replacing the word God with universe, replacing the gender of God with universe, a more general term. If you feel that God is Jesus, beautiful. That's amazing. If you feel that God is a goddess and Lakshmi or Saraswati or any of the amazing goddesses that we have as examples in many different paths, wonderful. The point is I really feel that you should be permitted to use whatever occurs to you and speaks to you as a relationship between you and the divine, however that relates and expresses itself through you. So if we're reading a doctrine that uses he or her, him or hers, it's like already that's pushing you in a direction, it's leading you in a direction. And if you're not able to get past that, that might sort of be like, I don't really like this. This isn't really resonating for me. So I'm hoping that the more universal language of the efforts is helpful for at least some of you. And if some of you have come up through the 12 steps and really gotten the power of the 12 steps through that language, that's wonderful too. This isn't about either or, it's about accessibility. How can you access a teaching? How can you access the power that each of us needs to access in order to come to greater and greater awareness, consciousness, and presence? That's what we're doing. So that's the 11th effort there, talking about praying for greater consciousness and the energy to fulfill our purpose today, in this day. Wow, that's a powerful thing is, I need energy. I need greater power, greater consciousness. When do I need it? Well, I need it in my efforts today, because today is a one day at a time. Our world and our life is a one day at a time existence as human beings. So we need it now. We need our energy here, and we need it in today. Okay, so that brings us to the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry these practices and principles to in all our affairs. We practice these principles in our affairs and have something about helping the alcoholic and addict. And I'm forgetting the exact wording. Please forgive me. The 12th effort reads as follows. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these efforts, we tried to carry this message to other seekers. So in the 12 steps, we carry this message to other alcoholics, carry this message to other addicts, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. In this one, I'm just saying we try to carry this message to other seekers and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Because if we're on a path of discovery, we are seekers. And hopefully within Recovery 2.0 and within recovery, we want to be finders. We don't just want to be seekers. We do want to be seekers always and be students always and learning every step of the way, but we want to be finding also. That's part of the fulfillment and part of the realization that we're after, is we find what we're looking for along the way. So, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these efforts, we tried to carry this message to other seekers and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So that is the 12 efforts.